This is Learn Hebrew Aleph to Tav, and in this lesson we continue our Hebrew numbers path by learning all about the Hebrew numbers 11 to 20. Before we start, I recommend you watch the previous lesson, numbers 1 to 10. Here is the structure of our lesson. Pause the video if you'd like to go over it. Abstract numbers are numbers that we use without denoting nouns specifically. For example, when we use numbers in a math equation like 11 plus 11 equals 22, we do not refer to anything specific. We just say the number 11, 22, and so on. Another example for abstract numbers in Hebrew is when a noun has a number attached to it, like house number 5 or door number 3. We discussed this example in the previous lesson. Let me give you a tip. You can easily recognize abstract numbers, like in the last example, in the following way. If inserting the word number or mispar in Hebrew before the number name still makes sense, the number is abstract and we should use the feminine numbers form. A simple example of this would be row 5, seat 9. We can add the word number so we get row number 5, seat number 9. The sentence still makes sense after we added the word number. In Hebrew, shura 5, כיסא 9. Let's add the word mispar, shura mispar 5, כיסא mispar 9. We already know that abstract numbers in Hebrew will always come in the feminine form, as a default, regardless of the noun's gender. This is the time to say that the feminine form of numbers 11 to 20 is in the construct form. Here are the numbers 11 to 20 in the feminine form. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Notice the shva nikud in the letter shin. This is in the construct form. 18. Notice the right pronunciation is shmone and not shmona. 19. Notice the shva nikud in the letter shin. This is again the construct form, just like 17 above. And finally, 20. For comparison, let's look at the feminine form of the numbers 1 to 10, covered in the previous lesson. We can see the similarity between the numbers. What immediately strikes the eye is the 20 suffix added to the numbers 11 to 19. One quote-unquote different number here is 20. It is spelled like the number 10 with the addition of the letters im. That is something you will need to memorize at this stage. Let's ignore the addition 20 for a second. Notice that there is a difference in pronunciation in the following numbers when comparing them to the 1 to 10 numbers. Take a second to view and understand the differences. Now, why is that? Since the stress has changed position, basically moved to the last syllable, the nikud in the number changes and with it the pronunciation. This has nothing to do with numbers specifically. That is just nikud rules of the Hebrew language. We can say that the changed number names are in the construct number name form. In any case, the changes are worth noticing and practicing. It may be a little confusing at the beginning, but with time you will get it and it will become more natural for you. Let's see some examples. Table number 15. שולחן מספר 15. A table is of masculine gender. Since in our case, this is an abstract number, we use the feminine form we have just learned, regardless of the noun's gender. Another example would be anytime we want to use number that doesn't denote any specific noun, like 12, 16, etc. To summarize, when we use number without denoting any noun, we use abstract numbers. Abstract numbers in Hebrew default to the feminine form. The main addition is the word esre, added to the number name. Besides the esre addition, there are also subtle changes in number names, nikud, worth noticing in the numbers 17, 18, 19, etc. Moving on to cardinal numbers. Cardinal numbers are numbers that denote nouns, usually when we count items, but not only. An example would be 5 tables or 11 doors. You can see that we do not just say a number, but the number is there to indicate the count or number of nouns we denote. So how does that work in Hebrew? In Hebrew, the number name changes according to the gender of the noun. This behavior is very similar to the numbers 1 to 10 covered in a previous lesson. Simply put, if you count nouns of masculine gender, you cannot use the feminine number names and vice versa. In addition to the above, like nouns, cardinal numbers also have the construct form and the separate form. A simple example would be 7 tables for the separate form and the 7 tables for the construct form. In English, it seems simple. The same number name, 7. In Hebrew, the number names change for the numbers 1 to 10. Luckily, for the numbers 11 to 20, there is no difference between the separate form and the construct form. We use the same form. We will cover all of this shortly. Let's start with the masculine form of the cardinal numbers 11 to 20. Here are the numbers. 11, 12. The form 1 and 2 are in the construct form, and from now on the numbers will be called in the separate form, exactly like in the numbers 1 to 10, with the addition of 10. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Apart from the numbers 11 and 12, we can see that the numbers are constructed by combining the separate form of the numbers 1 to 10 with the addition of 10. Let's compare the two. You can see that the number 5, for example, looks the same in both cases, with the addition of the word 10. That is great. It means that once you memorize the separate form of the numbers 1 to 10, you are practically more than halfway through memorizing the numbers 11 to 20. There is a small difference though. Look at the numbers 11 and 12. The first part of the number name is a little different than the separate masculine form of numbers 1 and 2. That is because in the numbers 11 and 12, the first parts of the number names 1 and 2 come in the form of the construct state. Thus, their nikud and pronunciation changes slightly. The separate masculine form of the number 1 is echad, and in the construct state, it is achad. Same goes for the numbers 2 and 12. The separate masculine form of the number 2 is shnaim, and in the construct state it is shnem. Take a moment to look at those numbers and spot the differences in pronunciation and nikud. As I mentioned, the rest of the numbers above 12 have no construct form, meaning they are the same as in separate masculine form. One last thing to notice is that the cardinal number name will always come before the noun, like in English. 11 chairs, 11 כיסאות. Now, let's see some examples. We will focus on masculine nouns, in our case, tables or שולחנות. I see 12 tables. אני רואה 12 שולחנות. Since a table, or tables for that matter, are of masculine gender, we need to use the masculine form of the numbers. In our case, 12. Another example, there are 15 chairs in the row. ישנם 15 כיסאות בשורה. כיסא is of masculine gender. The plural form of כיסא is כיסאות. We will use the masculine form of the number 15, 15. To summarize so far, with nouns of the masculine gender, we use the masculine number form. We can see that the masculine form ends with 10 and the feminine form ends with 10. There isn't any difference between the construct state form of the numbers and the singular separate form of the numbers. We use the same form for both. If you have watched the previous lesson, you probably ask yourself, what about definite nouns and indefinite nouns for counting the numbers 11 to 20? Luckily, as I mentioned above, there isn't any difference between the separate form and the construct form of the numbers. Meaning, we use the same number names for both definite and indefinite nouns. Again, no matter what is the case, definite nouns or indefinite nouns, we only use one version of the number names. It is best explained by an example. Indefinite noun. 14 tables is 14 שולחנות. Definite noun. The 14 tables, in Hebrew, 14 השולחנות. Can you see the ha added to the word שולחנות in the definite noun example? That is the definite article. No need to change the number name as we do with the numbers 1 to 10. It stays the same for the definite and indefinite form. If we compare it to the number 4, in which definite article changes the number name, we get 4 tables, 4 שולחנות. The 4 tables, 4 השולחנות. 4 השולחנות. See the differences in the number 4? 4, 4. When, in the indefinite form, we use the masculine separate number form, 4. When in the definite form, we use the masculine construct form, 4. What I'm trying to say is that with numbers 11 to 20, no matter if we see a definite or indefinite noun, we always use the same number. In the above example, 14. We now cover the masculine form. What about the feminine cardinal numbers? We already talked about the feminine form in the abstract numbers part of this lesson. Since we use the same form for definite and indefinite nouns, we can use the same feminine numbers. Here's a diagram that will clarify the structure and will break down those cases so you know what to use in every case. Let's go over the main points in this lesson. We learned the feminine form in the context of abstract numbers. We use the same feminine form also for cardinal numbers. We then learned the masculine form, total of 2 number forms, one for each gender. For each form, there is no difference between definite and indefinite nouns. That's all I have for you today. If you do have any comments or questions about this, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe, and as always, thank you and toda for watching.